the ownership of sex. You see, we were born to be sexual, we were born to be social, we were born to connect. We were born to have empathy, to have love. These, in fact, are our birthrights. But whenever man comes into anything that is beautiful, that is of nature, that is a connection with somebody, that is something of value that gives him power, he tries to control it, he tries to possess it, he tries to own it. And actually, if we really look at the nature of man, that doesn't always happen. That only happens when man lives within a world of scarcity. And that is what we live in. We're overpopulated, we don't have enough resources, whether that's in the form of emotional resources, in the form of food and water resources. We're always at the bay of scarcity. We don't have enough resources to fulfill us sexually. We have a lot of connection, we have a lot of stimuli, we have a lot of interaction, yet we're unfulfilled. And so when man is put in that environment and he comes into something that is of value, of beauty, of meaning to him, he tries to possess it. He tries to own sex. He tries to own femininity. He tries to own masculinity. He tries to own orgasm. He tries to own pleasure in order to have a security over it. And whether that's an emotional security, whether that's an actual physical security, whatever it is when we're speaking with deficit and when we're speaking with control, we need force. When we are speaking with fear and when we are speaking from that deficit mindset, we can only speak in a way where we have to limit, we have to restrict, we have to restrain. We see men and women do this over and over again with so many different ways, whether it's through pickup, whether it's through a hate group, whether it's through a humanitarian group trying to do better. But so little do we really see and do we really worship what humanity is all about, what human value is all about, and what it is about is it is about choice. It is about decision. It is about connection. If you want to know the tipping point of where rapport moves into seduction, where it moves into voracious sex, when a woman is turned on and aroused to a point where she is out of control, she is filled with the sex drive, much like a man's, that she wants to be a woman. She wants to be a sexual woman. The side of her that she doesn't show and actually cannot show out to the public because she's not in that state. She's in her social state. And also that side of man, that comes through choice. That comes from me allowing her to show her expression. Her deciding to show it and me wanting it. That decision, that connection, that unique moment is what gives it its value. And true power comes from choice. True freedom comes from choice. When it's enforced, when it's made, when it's confined, it can't be. And of course, there might be states where things get so crazy and, it moves into a police state or we're under terrorist attack or whatever, or yada, yada. Things get so fucked up that it has to be put back into order because everything's a mess, right? But for us to think that that is our nature, for us to think that that is the true virtues of humanity, is to not have choice, to have limitation, to have restriction, to think that sex, as beautiful as it is and how crazy it is and it incites men and women to do such insane things, but to put it in a box and package it and try and make it look good and say that's expression and that's human value, man, that's where the force comes from. That's where the enforcement comes from. And that's where the lack of freedom, that's where the lack of decision, and that's where the lack of this sense of being and knowing who we are, knowing what a man is. Fuck, man. When I think about this and I think about the seduction industry, there's so many coaches out there, there's so many people, and this pisses me off so much, is where they try and be this expression of the archetype of man, to look good, to have good presence, all that sort of shit. And there's always a performance that comes into play, but none of those guys learn to be real. My journey was not to be alpha, not to be a leader amongst people, not to be alpha to all the women and have them follow me, or alpha to all the men and look good. It was to be myself, so that when I was in front of that person, that human being that gave me value, and that human experience to do what I wanted to do, I could be myself, I could have choice, and that's where empowerment comes from. But if you're trying, whether it's wearing a certain thing, hitting a facade, whether it's controlling another person, or trying to limit or control your expression, then learn to live with expressing it, then you will be disempowered. You will have no freedom. You ultimately have no choice. And what the funny irony is the whole pretense for all of this was to finally feel like a man, finally feel like a woman, finally get the answers of sex. Well, guess what? It comes down to you. Put yourself out there, experience you, learn to choose, learn to express, learn to be you. Learn what that responsibility is. When you make a mistake, when everything falls apart, how do you fix it? When you fall in love and new thoughts come into your head, you can't rely on a system, you can't rely on a chart. But you have to make those decisions with somebody that affect them, that affect you, could possibly hurt you, could possibly hurt someone else. And in that, there's empowerment. In that, there is your sexual life. In that is the freedom. Live your fucking life. Own it. Be social. Be sexual. It's what you are meant to do.